So, hello friends. I have some questions today. Are we attracted to the power of West or are we attracted to the culture of West? Is West powerful because it has a superior culture or is the culture of West hailed superior because it is more powerful? Is culture reflecting the power of West or is culture the cause of the power of West? What is this relationship? Why are we attracted to the culture of West? Or, as I said, are we attracted to the power of West? Now, many of us in the Eastern world, in the developing world, we have a feeling of resentment against West. We do realize that how, during the course of history, and even today, the West subjugated us. We do realize how this unequal power structure exists today and confines our growth. But in spite of these feelings of resentment, at some point of time, some or maybe all of us want to be part of that West. We want to be absorbed by the Western world. We want to be assimilated by them. And this is reflected in on many occasions. So why do we want to become a part of West when we have feelings of resentment against West? And this difference between West and East, this difference between the developed and developing, on what basis this difference exists? Is there really anything like the Western world and the Eastern world? Or are these differences meaningless and getting blurred? Or they never existed in the first place? On what basis does this boundary line exist between the West and the East? Is it because of geography? But if it is because of the geography, why countries like Russia sometimes in our thought process occur as Western countries and at other time they occur as Eastern countries? When we read about the literature of Leo Tolstoy and other product of art and culture of Russia, we often relate them to the Eastern world. But when we talk about colonialism and the tyranny of a particular race, the racial oppression, then we equate Russia with the Western world. Even a tiny country like Japan, in most part of its history, it had been considered as a part of the Orient world, as a part of the Asian world. Japan had close ties with Asian countries like India, and it was also considered a representative of the Eastern world. But today, when you talk about geopolitics or economy, you, in your thought process, consider Japan as in Western world. You relate it to United States and club them together. Even United States itself, it is no doubt the flag bearer of the developed world. It's the representative figure of the Western world today. But during its course of history, United States does describe itself as a country which was oppressed by the colonial rulers of England and how it fought back and won its freedom. So, in certain respect, someone is calling himself as developed, someone is calling himself as developing, someone is calling himself West, someone is seen as Eastern. There are men of literature and art who have been living in the Western world for their entire life almost, like Salman Rushdie. They've been residing in Britain for decades. But when they write novels, or when some similar men and women they write theories, while they are residing in Britain, but they portray themselves as representative of the Eastern world. At that point of time, they become part of the East. And on the other hand, we have many artists and academicians who are residing in India, who have been residing in India for their entire life. But when they speak in the language of the West, and they are quickly absorbed by the Western world as one amongst them. And they're rejected by the Indian audience at large, like Arundhati Roy, who won the Booker Prize for God of Small Things. She is not considered by most Indians, or at least many Indians, as representative of the Indian thought. So, on what basis do we construct the difference between the West and East, between the developed and developing? And when we say this word developing, do we realize on in which direction are we talking about? In which direction of development? According to whose standards of development have we built this definition of developing and developed and placed ourselves in one of those categories? We are playing a game, the rules of which have not been created by us. And yet we want to win in that game. And sometimes we do want to change the rules of the games. We try sometimes, we fail most of them. So this difference between the West and the East, between the developed and the developing, is something which we need to ponder about. So I leave this thing to you. Think about it. Thank you for now.